What does Jesus mean when he gives us the parables of the workers? That's what we're going to find out today in Matthew 20. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods, going over the Bible, one chapter at a time. Last time we were reading about Jesus, and he went beyond the Jordan, talking to the crowd that was following him around. We start off again in 20 in the same situation. Again, the chapters in the Bible, not biblical. They were just broken up so that we can refer to them and talk about, hey, did you read Matthew 20? But he starts off with talking about what the kingdom of heaven is. He says that the kingdom of heaven is like a household where there's a bunch of laborers that are working for this vineyard, and they all agree to work for a denarius. A denarius was a coin, and it was meant to represent 1 day's labor. And I don't know how you build economy on that. We have to look at the economy of a denarius. So he goes out and hires a worker and says, hey, come work for me today, and you'll get a denarius. And then on the 3rd hour, he goes out again, sees more people standing out in the marketplace, and tells them, go to the vineyard. He's going to give them a denarius too, a day's labor. And then he went on the 6th hour and the 9th hour where he did the same thing, the 11th hour. And they're all going to get a denarius. They worked 12-hour days. And so at the 11th hour means they're going to work for 1 hour and get the same amount of money as the people who had been working all day. So when he asked him, when he was at the 11th hour, he asked him, well, why are you standing around all day? And he goes, well, no one hired us. Okay, go ahead and work in my vineyard. Evening came, the 12th hour, and everyone got a denarius. And so the people who were hired first are like, well, wait a minute. We worked 11 hours more than those guys. This is not fair. You're giving them the same wages as we're going to get. I can tell you, I spent 2 summers in Israel. Hot. So working in a vineyard, I can't even imagine. And he said, look, you all agreed to work for a denarius. When I hired you, you said it was fine. I hired them. They said it was fine. And now you're getting all mad because they're getting the same money you're getting. We agreed on a price. I'm paying the price. I'm the head of this vineyard. Am I not allowed to pay what I want? Am I not allowed to be generous with my money? And in that same sentence, he says, the last will be first and the first will be last. And so again, we're going to hear more about this as we're going to go start to Jerusalem. But the idea is, we already know what this means, that the kingdom of heaven is coming. I think the idea of it is that there are people who confess on their deathbed to Jesus, the split second before they die. And there are people who lived a good Christian life their whole lives. There are people who have given their lives to be missionaries and work very hard for the Lord. And then there are people who don't. All of them are going to get the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus is saying in the end, who are you to tell God who he's going to be generous with? The person who confessed a second before? Think about the thief on the cross, which we'll read about coming up. The split second before he dies, as he's hanging on the cross, he believes, and Jesus says, you're going to be in the kingdom of heaven with me. Meanwhile, Peter's running around and doing all this work on behalf of Jesus, and he could be like, wait, I've been doing all this work, and that guy gets to go too? It's not to us to tell God who he can be generous with. Or even think about the Gentiles. You had the scribes and the Sadducees and the Pharisees that were dedicating their lives to Jesus, doing this balancing act to try to keep the Romans out of their business in very hard circumstances, worshiping God. And now the Gentiles are going to come in at this last minute and get saved? This is a message for everybody. Whoever you think you are, whoever would make you grumble because they ended up in the kingdom of heaven, that's not for you to say. God is going to be generous with people. So this is going to be a hard message, and it is a hard message for people. I hear that all the time. Well, wait, you think that guy's going to go to heaven? We want everyone to be in heaven. And as soon as we start thinking that person shouldn't be in heaven, maybe it's a little bit for us, a chance for us to think about what's really important. They're going towards Jerusalem, and he tells them, just so you understand, the Son of Man, Jesus, is going to be delivered into the hands of the chief priests, the scribes. The scribes are going to be the experts. They're going to condemn the Son of Man to death, deliver him to the Gentiles. That's going to be the Romans. And he's going to be mocked, flogged. He's going to be crucified, but then on the third day, he's going to be raised again. This shouldn't be a surprise. That's what the funny thing about the whole situation is that everyone seemed so surprised when Jesus ended up dying on the cross. And then they were surprised when he came back. And why? Why were you surprised? He kept telling you all of this, but you weren't paying attention. So then we get into this weird story, and the story is going to change in the Gospels. Again, every one of the apostles had a different point of view, a different place in the area. It's not making anything wrong or right. If I say, well, Bob was here listening to me talk about my podcast, but really Bob and Sally were here listening to me talk my podcast, it's not wrong. Bob was here, but then someone else says, well, but Bob and Sally was here at the podcast. It all is correct. It just is a different perspective, and it includes different people. But in this particular case, the mother of the sons of Zebedee was the father of James and John, and her name was Salome, and she was also a witness. She's going to be a witness to the death of Jesus, so she's a believer. She comes up to Jesus and says, I want my sons to sit on your left hand and your right hand in the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus says, you don't know what you're asking. Can they drink the cup I'm going to drink? And when you talk about a cup or pouring out the cup, it means an awful sacrifice is going to be given. It's a cup of blood. When you think about animal sacrifice in the time of the temple, that's what's going to happen to Jesus. Something bad is going to happen. You think that they want to go through what I'm going to go through? And the hope is, I think for all of us, that we hope we're not poured out like a cup, that bad things aren't going to come our way. Are they going to drink the cup that Jesus is going to drink? Meaning, are you going to take the awful thing that's going to happen to Jesus and do that too? And everyone around is like, yeah, I can do that. They don't know what they're saying. Again, the sons of thunder, impetuous. Peter, bold. You don't know what you're talking about. But you know what? He says, you're right. You are going to drink from this cup. And that means they're all going to die in horrible ways. We know that through church tradition, how many of them did die. All 11 of them, well, Judas killed himself. 10 of them were killed at the hands of other people. And then John was exiled to a rocky island, and then he was brought back in his old age, where he probably wrote his book of John. He's right. You're right. You are all going to drink this cup that I'm going to drink. But to sit on my left hand and my right hand, that's not for me to grant. That's God the Father who's going to prepare those seats. And then when they heard this, it sounded boastful. Like, we were so cool. We were all in the same place. But now they're thinking like humans. I want the top position. I want to be in the place of honor. And that's not how the kingdom of heaven is. And I'm sure Peter was like, well, what am I, chopped liver? I mean, where am I supposed to sit? And so the rest of the apostles were indignant about this. It says in ESV. And then Jesus called them and says, all right, come here. Let's talk about this. So he tries to explain to them the world around them. Particularly the Romans are about rank. The temple is about rank. There's a chief priest. There's chief elders. There's chief scribes. Everything here on earth is about rank and authority and where you are in this pecking order. And Jesus says that is not how the kingdom of heaven is going to be. If you want to be the greatest, you be the servant to all. The Son of Man came here not to be served, but to serve. Give his life as a ransom for everybody. And it's not about this rat trap that we have on earth. It's not about whether you get the promotion or you're the CFO as compared to the CEO. That's not what the kingdom of heaven's going to be like. There's not kings. There's not promotions. There's not what you see around you. So they don't even know what they're asking. They already told them that they're going to sit on 12 thrones, that they're going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. But they were doing this, I think, out of enthusiasm, but it was boastful too. They were looking for a place for themselves. You could tell that they were excited. We're with the Messiah, the actual Messiah on earth, and maybe we're going to be special. So it's good and bad in that particular conversation. They want to know, do they have a special place? Are they special because they're the apostles? They're the first 12 picked by him. Does that make them special in any sort of way? It would have been interesting for them because they came out of nothing. They had nothing. They were all not leaders, not kings, not high places. And so they were looking for their own place, and they just don't understand that is just not how the kingdom operates. But when you're a servant, it's also going to be about humility, about the fact that you might be last, even though you were first to go serve God. They need to think more of this as a brotherhood, a sisterhood of mankind, worshiping God together. So now they're outside of Jericho, which again, when we see the city walls blown out, the city was destroyed back in the time of Joshua. The city is one of the most historic cities on this planet. It's one of the oldest cities on the planet. When I was in Jericho, I was not a believer, not a Christian. I didn't believe in the Bible. But I asked the person who was in charge of the dig there, I said, were the city walls blown out just like the Bible said? She goes, oh, no. The walls are not blown out. Look here, you can see the walls are not blown out. So I'm walking around a little bit in the area, and I got put in contact with a man on our dig who was a biblical archaeologist. And he goes, Jill, come over here. I want to show you something. So he takes me to another set of walls, and the walls are blown out, just like it says it happened in the Bible. So I asked the head archaeologist, I said, but these walls are blown out. She goes, no, we don't think this is Jericho. We think that's Jericho. And I said, well, is it a different time period? Is it something like that? And she goes, no, it's all the same time. Oh, so they just don't want the walls to be blown out because it reinforces the Bible. And so there's a little bit of confusion whenever we talk about Jericho, because sometimes it'll say they're leaving Jericho, they're coming to Jericho. That's because there's two cities of Jericho. There's the old city of Jericho, which is the part with the walls being blown out. And then there was a new Herod city of Jericho, which was the administration center, the new area of town. So you'll see discrepancies in the Bible where it'll say that Jesus was coming towards Jericho or Jesus was leaving Jericho, when in fact both are Jericho and both can be leaving and coming at the same time. There was enough gap there. Okay, enough about Jericho. So they are there, and a blind man came out and says, Son of David. Now, Son of David is a declaration of him being God. You are a descendant of David. You are the Messiah that was promised in the line of David. This is important. But they're not only just saying, you are God, but they're crying out, have mercy on us, save us. And he says, well, what do you want? What do you need? They asked him, open our eyes. Jesus took pity on them. Now, the word that is in Greek, in the New Testament is written in Greek, is gut-wrenching. It's not just like, oh, those poor guys. It is like you are ripped with compassion for someone. That's the kind of word this is. So he took pity on them, and he is willing to do miracles for people. And when we get to Mark, it'll say that there was one blind man. Here there's two. Not a contradiction, like I said. Just because one mentions one and one mentions two, don't get hung up on that. It is fine for one to mention one and one to mention two. It's okay. But he does it. He heals them. And that ends chapter 20. And we'll hear more about these two particular men when we get to other Gospels. What I'm going to meditate on is that idea that we shouldn't have envy. We shouldn't think about our own position in heaven. We shouldn't think about being first or last, or who gets the riches or who doesn't get the riches, or who gets to sit on the left hand or the right hand. But instead, focus on God's generosity to everyone. It's not our place to go drag other people down because they had more money or less money, or were raised rich or was raised poor, or had some advantage we didn't have. It's so easy for us to get envious, to sit there and think, well, yeah, well, if I could be raised like that person, I would be, a business person too, because I had everything that they had. They had nice clothes, nice money, fast cars, anything they wanted. Our goal is not to be envious, and I'm going to meditate on that. And what I'm going to pray about is that I'm always satisfied and grateful for the things I have. I'm not a wealthy person, but in terms of probably ancient Israel, of course I am. Probably wealthier than that guy in 1910. He had 100 books. I have more books. Don't think of ourselves as wealthy, but instead we should have contentment, gratefulness. We should be thankful for God for the things that we do have. The fact that I have a quiet, peaceful home over my head when it's storming and snowing outside. I'm warm in here. A lot of people don't have that. And what I'm going to share with others is the fact that God is gracious to everybody. He will give the denarius wage to everybody he can. He will get them into the kingdom of heaven. He will be generous to everyone, Jew, Gentile, man, woman, everybody. And that we should never think about other people and what they got compared to what we got. Everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you listening to this video. Please tell a friend, leave a review, and if you have anything to say to me, feel free to put it in the chat channel or email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I appreciate it. Please have a wonderful day.